Okay, hey now. Happy Tuesday. Don't really like the happy before the day, but sure. It spins everything in a good mood. So yes, we'll have a happy Tuesday. Okay, so we looked at The Matrix and we're still trying to figure out what that movie is about, but the super cool bullet dodging scene we're going to score. So get that into me by today. We'll see the results Friday. If you're new, play along. You have to watch the class and watch the scene, though. You can't just send in music because that's not part of the assignment. So, I'm having some trouble. So you're gonna help me with this class. We're gonna talk about another composer, and I'm having a philosophical dilemma here in my head. So why not give it to you guys? Make you guys help me with uncovering who's better. I mean, what are we, second grade? Who's better than this person? But as Freud and Melanie Klein and psychologists say, we split our brains into thinking this is the best, this is the worst. This is how we survive when we're babies. This is the good parent, the bad parent. So we always have to, and then the mature thing to do is to say, well, this has good elements, this has bad. It's the world is not black and white, it's gray, right? But we're brought up in a black and white way to think because we need to survive. So once we get past that, and trust me, this gets into what we're going to be talking about today. So I didn't just wake up on the wrong side of the bed. Okay, so today I want to talk to you about a classical composer that is very, very much like Mozart. But I was thinking, why do more people know Mozart than this composer? And is the wrong answer is like, well, because Mozart's better. I don't know. We're going to talk about this today. We're going to be talking about the huge, famous composer Joseph Haydn. Haydn's music is witty, light, very elegant. We're going to be talking about the elegant period of classical music, of the classical age period. The umbrella of classical music is people are still writing classical music, but really the period of classical music. Austrian composer, developed the symphony a lot. We've talked about the symphony with Mahler, and also chamber music, smaller music. Particularly the string quartet. The string quartet was huge. He's kind of known as the father of the symphony and father of the string quartet because he wrote so many. How many, do you ask? He wrote 106 symphonies. Think about that. Most people write none. Composers, maybe write 9 or 10. Beethoven and Mahler, they all kind of, and Schubert, they all kind of stopped around that. He wrote 106 symphonies. Probably all brilliant. How many string quartets? 90. More than 90 string quartets, 62 piano sonatas, and 32 piano trios. So what have you guys been doing lately? I mean, it makes us all look really, really bad. I mean, granted, he lived 77 years, so it wasn't like he did this all by his 30s. But still, you would think that you'd slow down, but he didn't. Really, obviously prolific composer. Very famous for his symphonies. We did hear, if you remember in the Booker Little class, we listened to Haydn's trumpet concerto. And because Booker Little's classical trumpet, our thesis for Booker Little was that he played jazz trumpet only sounding like a classical trumpet player. So that was, if you remember, a few weeks ago. So, and he was a friend of Mozart. They were friends. And he also was a tutor of Beethoven, because Beethoven and Mozart kind of, when we get our timeline up, we'll kind of see how these people overlap. He spent much of his career as a court musician for a wealthy family. So unlike Mozart, who was, died young and poor, Haydn was very well taken care of, and a huge celebrity in his own right. And we've talked about Bach and other composers that got fame hundreds of years later. Well, some people experience fame in their lifetime, and Haydn was one. So, born in 1732 in Austria. Let's leave Hollywood. Don't like to say those words. Let's leave Hollywood and go to Austria, where he's born. And time-wise, where are we talking about? I mean, classical period. So this is after the Baroque, after Bach, Baroque ornamentation. Classical is very pure, right? And this is going to be before the Romantic period, so before Tchaikovsky. I mean, I'm so proud of all the composers we've looked at, because when I say names, I'm getting less and less have to say, well, we'll get to these people. Now we've gotten to a lot of these people, so it's pretty cool. I mean, we did a whole class on Handel. So Handel and Bach are, and Henry Purcell are Baroque composers. Remember Monteverdi, who wrote the first opera? That's like Renaissance music, a long time ago. Classical starts with Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven, Schubert, but then the Romantic is obviously Wagner. I mean, is pure, is bulging with romanticism with Wagner. But we're not there yet. We're not going to be chromatic. We're going to be very, that's why this class will be very, as you can hear, Haydn, very consonant, very pure, good sounding, fun music. So he grew up in a really tiny, poor town. His mother was a cook and his father was a wheelwright. Was your dad a wheelwright? Mine wasn't. But his parents couldn't read music, but there was a lot of folk music in his family home life. But Haydn got work and fame as a boy singer, as a very successful boy soprano, because the soprano is high. Usually men aren't soprano, but when you're a boy, you have a high voice before your voice changes. So from about age 8 till 17, he's singing in the very St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna. Didn't have formal training as a composer, was self-taught a lot, but studied other composers and looked at books and manuals on composition and counterpoint. So a lot of it was he was so driven to become a great composer. His big break came in 1758, so he started getting the attention of these rich families in Vienna, and then he was appointed the musical director there. And by age 29, he was employed by one of the wealthiest in all of Europe, and he stayed with them for about 30 years. So it's kind of like having tenure, you have a job security and you can write whatever you want. So that's pretty lucky. By the 1770s and 1780s, he's one of Europe's leading composers. And this is when Mozart's writing. Beethoven's not writing quite yet. Personality-wise, he had a great sense of humor, supposedly. He liked practical jokes. Like Mozart, that's probably why they get along, pretty well. So Beethoven was going to study with Mozart. Mozart died before they could begin any of that studying. So Beethoven kind of studied a little bit with Haydn for a little bit. When Mozart was 25, he moves to Vienna and he writes string quartets dedicated to Haydn. So they were very in awe of each other and very respectful of each other. Some accounts say that they played string quartets together, which is lovely. Mozart said that he learned how to write string quartets from Haydn. So Haydn was so prolific in that. And he liked, there was a lot of extreme organization in Haydn's music, and that's what Mozart liked. Mozart kind of veers into a little bit chromaticism sometimes. His music and movements are usually around a single theme or motif, one kind of thing that he develops. Beethoven and Mozart will kind of explore other things. Sometimes exploring is good. Haydn has got the formula down. I mean, if you're writing 106 symphonies and that's all you do, that's great. That he did other than that. But at some point, as my dad would say, it becomes a formula. Not that that's bad to say. I mean, but once you got the formula, you sort of know how to do it. So he was able to develop larger structures out of short phrases, short motifs. That's kind of how he was different a little bit than other composers like Beethoven. So Haydn dies 77 in 1809, a long illness. He's buried, and following his burial, two men bribed the gravedigger, and they stole his skull. They wanted to study, and legend goes, what was the genius behind Haydn's brain and his skull. So Haydn was buried without a head, supposedly, until 1954, so hundreds of years. The skull passed on. I mean, there was this whole history of all these people and dates, and we don't have to go into that. But in 1954, the skull was finally transferred to the tomb. So 145 years he was missing his head. Not that he knew, but so they said when the composer's skull was restored, the remained to the skeleton, the substitute, the skull that was there as a substitute, was still there. So Haydn's tomb supposedly has two skulls. Now the big question is, who's the other skull, right? Just some other guy? I don't know. Again, answers that I don't know. So I'm curious. I mean, we automatically assume that Mozart's a better composer. I mean, after reading all this, people say Haydn was actually much more talented and obviously more prolific. But I mean, he double-lived Mozart's life. Do we think of Mozart being better because we know Mozart better than Haydn? I'm curious to know what as we're listening to Haydn, what you guys think of this. I mean, let's just hear a little Mozart just to kick it in. But then that's also something that's familiar. Everyone's heard that piece of Mozart. So we think in our minds, oh, well, that's probably better. But some reason Mozart's music stays with me more than Haydn. But that's maybe because I listen more to Mozart. But as I'm listening to Haydn, I'm thinking this is really pleasant, elegant music. But the melodies don't stay with me, at least for me, as strong as they do with Mozart. Maybe that's why we know and revere Mozart more. Not to say he's better, but more memorable perhaps. Like I started the class, I mean, it's ridiculous to use better. There's taste, right? There's just, some people like red, some people like purple. Taste is a good thing to think about, but I mean, if we're kind of thinking about who's more memorable, who's going to live on, and I was just having a small dilemma because I was trying to think of, we have pop artists right now that are, their contemporaries, and it's like, well, who do you like better? And now that hundreds of years have passed, we can kind of think about it as who should we, I guess we should study both of these people, and that's what we've been doing. But perhaps it goes that melody does live on, and maybe Mozart's melodies were a little stronger. this is my taste and my subjective view. Maybe they were a little more memorable somehow, and not to say that Haydn didn't do great things. They both did great things, but I was just trying to think, why do more people know Mozart's name? I mean, he's more famous, but fame doesn't necessarily mean better, you know, just because somebody's more famous, it has nothing to do with their worth. So a little bit of philosophy for Tuesday, for a Classical Tuesday, and mainly I'm concerned about who's the other skull in the tomb, you know? I mean, that's got to be something, I don't know. I won't get caught up because we have to move on with our work, but yeah, that's also another philosophical thing too. And if your skull had to be used, I mean, I guess it would be nice to be used to be close next to Haydn's. I guess that's okay, yeah. Okay, miss you, love you. Thanks for working this out with me. Yeah, and you can let me know your thoughts, because late Haydn and early Mozart sound very similar. I've talked to my mom about this. It's very hard to tell the difference between what composer who's the composer of the piece, because of course they overlapped, but I mean, so again, just, you know, kind of food for thought. Okay, happy Tuesday. Let's do it. Miss you and love you, and I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, bye.